Okay. Uh, so in last week, right? So we started with the module one. We covered the introduction to cloud and Microsoft Azure, benefits of cloud computing, types of cloud computing, and types of cloud services covered. And yesterday I just started with the about the subscription part. Okay. So a couple of them were not available for first classes as well as yesterday. So do you want me to go through from the beginning, recap today, or shall I continue from yesterday's session? How do you want?
If you can continue from the beginning, if you can start from the beginning, that would be great.
Okay.
Yes,
No
because
worries. That's fine.
haven't
Mhm.
been in the sessions.
Okay, cool. No worries, and that's fine. So I'll resume from the beginning. So I'll just run very quickly. And if at all, if you have any doubt, any question, please feel free to stop and ask. Okay. Okay. So AZ-104, which is the Azure Administration. Now Microsoft Azure is called Microsoft Intra, right? And in this training, wherein we'll be learning about the building and managing your infrastructure in Microsoft Cloud, in Microsoft Azure. Okay. So there are 15 modules wherein I've listed here, which we will be running across through this session. Okay. And this will be 90% practical oriented. So initially there are a couple of theory session. After the theory, like wherein we'll start looking into the services. I'll be explaining the services, and also I will be creating the services, and also I'll be helping to create your uh, Azure accounts where you can do your labs. Okay. So it's not a stimulation one. So whatever you do in your lab is the same thing what you do in your production as well. Okay. And also there are a couple of live scenarios wherein we'll be working small live projects. Okay. And if at all, apart from the syllabus, if you want to add, like apart from this content, anything you want to add related to the Azure administration, you can tell me that we can include in the last. Okay. If at all, if I'm going fast, or if you need any more relevant examples, feel free to stop and ask me. Okay, let's start with the initial slide. Okay, if at all, if you have a question saying that, okay, AZ-104, is it a right start for us to start our career, right? Like you have some experience in IT or non-IT or relevant to the infrastructure or to a different domain in technical itself. Now you want to start your career as your cloud administrator in Microsoft Azure. So in that case, AZ-104 is a right start content. Okay, so let's quickly understand like what is cloud computing and some basics here, then we can start moving from there. So in this module wherein today we'll be discussing what is cloud computing, benefits, types of cloud computing, types of cloud services, and overview of Microsoft Azure we'll be learning here. So first, simple question, what is cloud computing? So before we understand cloud, so let's try to understand what is computing. So let's take example. For my organization, I want to host some application, right? So simple take that you want to host an e-commerce website for your products. So how are you going to do it? So wherein you require the compute resource to host your application. A simple web application you required simple CPU, RAM, storage, network, operating system, your web application, then you can launch it and you can be online. So same thing when you want to host in a cloud, right? So the same infrastructure is required. Okay. Same compute infrastructure is required. But what will happen? This you're going to consume or you're going to use on the vendor infrastructure like Azure, AWS, Google, so on. Okay. This computing resource you'll be using on their infrastructure and you will be hosting your applications there. Okay. So simple. Cloud computing can be defined as delivering the computing power, CPU, RAM, network storage, operating system, then later on your application. And this computing resource, whatever you are using, you're going to use a service over the network, right? So if you take your Gmail, or if at all the OneDrive which I've opened now, right? So my data is sitting on the Microsoft cloud, and that is consuming their infrastructure like operating system, the hardware, and everything, and managing over the network. Okay. So usually on the internet, rather than physically having the compute resource at your customer location. Means your Gmail, you use your client like your mobile or your computer, the browser, or the Gmail app to access and manage your mail. But actually, where is your mail and the transaction is happening? It's happening on the vendor environment. So I don't have any infrastructure in my premises. So in this simple way where we can define the cloud compute. All right. So let's move to the next slide. So what are the benefits, right? So nowadays everyone are learning cloud computing. Why? Because there is a demand in market. So why there is a demand? Because people are adapting the cloud infrastructure in their environment. So uh, why they are moving to the cloud or adapting to cloud? Because there is a benefit. So whatever you host in your premises, when you compare that, there is a benefit in cloud. That is the reason where people are adapting the cloud services, or they are leveraging their infrastructure to the cloud, or extending their footprint to the cloud, or moving completely to the cloud. So what are the top benefits? So here is the top benefits. So let's go briefly one by one, but I'll give you one simple example, so which can help you to understand better. So let's take example, mine is a startup. Okay. So now I want to host my applications over the internet or whatever. The same example take for my company. I want to have a e-commerce website. Okay. So now to host this, what all I require? So first thing, I should have a physical space where I can keep my IT infrastructure, your data center. And you need to have your IT infrastructures like compute, storage, network. And again, you should have the cooling, power supply. And again, if your primary data center goes down, so to keep your business 100% uptime, so wherein you should have your secondary data center as well. And today there are 100 users. Tomorrow it's going to increase into 100 times. So you need to scale your infrastructure as and when it's required. So when you see this, where I need to invest a lot of money, and again, once in 3 years or couple of years, you have to refresh your hardware. You have to upgrade your operating system or your software. You have to reinvest money, right? And to manage this infrastructure, you require a lot of IT folks to manage your IT infrastructure, and again, infrastructure to them, right? So very lot of cost is involved here when you want to host in your premises. And it's a time consuming part, right? So when it comes to cloud computing, so the same thing I want to host, right? So my requirement, let's take example for now. I need a one server, 8 GB RAM, 4 CPU, some 500 GB hard disk, Windows or Linux operating system. I want this device to be located in somewhere in US, India, or any other country, right? So what I can do, I can just create my account and I can start spending whatever the service I want. As and when I require, I can add up more resources, like I can extend the capacity vertically or horizontally. And whenever I don't require, I can decommission or I can release that resource. So what will happen here? I'll be paying only for what I am going to consume. Tomorrow, if nothing works, I can decommission everything. So cost saving is one of the major advantage where people are looking and adapting the cloud services. Okay. The potential of cost saving is the major reason where people are adapting the cloud services. Cloud computing will give you the freedom to use the service as per your requirement and pay only for what you use, due to which the cloud computing has become the most possible way to run your entire IT as an outsourced unit. Okay, so without having much in-house footprint. So one is the cost saving and improved performance. the whatever the configuration you're going for, right? So you will get that performance and maintenance. So we come across a lot of maintenance, right? Like your firmware updates, your hardware maintenance, your OS updates, downtime during that time, right? And again, unplanned outages, right? So when you host any services in the cloud, you get 99.95% of uptime SLA. Still, you can achieve it for 99.99. It depends upon like how do you plan and design your infrastructure. Okay. And software updates. As I told you, there are different types of cloud services. We'll be understanding in the next slide. So it depends upon what type of cloud services you are going, right? So the software updates like firmware updates, OS update, or the application updates are taken care accordingly. You need not to worry on that. And improved capability between operating system. Like you can go with any OS flavors you want, Windows, Linux, yes. Backup and recovery. And also in some cases now, wherein I don't want to move everything to cloud or I don't want to have any footprint in cloud. Let's take example, like always the data is very critical part, right? So you lose your data, you lose your business. So now, if you look the traditional backup, what we do in our on-prem, right? So we have our application server, which is putting some data on the local hard disk. So the critical data, we don't leave it there, right? So we'll try to take a backup. So we try to keep a backup in another disk drive in same location. After a couple of days, we move that disk data back up to the tape drive. And again, once you take a backup, you don't keep that data in the same place. What will happen if there is a physical disaster? You lose your data even though if you have your backup. So after a couple of days, you ship this tape drive to a different location in a safer place. And when it comes to restore, obviously it will take a long time to get it restored. Okay, but still, this is a traditional way what we do a backup. So instead of running such weird things, so what you can do, you can take your like you can directly keep your backup, or after a couple of days, you can keep your backup in the cloud. Okay, so this is also one of the scenario what we see where the cloud services are used for your backup services. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. You can take a backup and keep in cloud as and when required. You can restore it over the internet, and also some cases you see the cloud has been used as your recovery services. Let's take example. I have my data center in India. So now, if there is any outages, like recently there was a rain in Chennai, so no power, no internet, couple of days, you may see there some downtime, right? So to have you this high availability, what we usually do, we will have a replica copy of your production critical environment in a different physical location. We call it as a business continuity, right? So if your primary data center is down, you can turn on your secondary data center. So again, you have to invest the similar infrastructure in a different place as well. And again, you have to maintain that. Instead of doing that, what you can do, you can simply replicate your critical infrastructure to cloud. Means you can use your cloud as your disaster recovery site. Whenever your on-prem is down, you can turn on your cloud. Means infrastructure is running on the cloud. Means this is also another way where people are consuming the cloud services. Performance and scalability. So as I told you, you can go vertical scaling or you can go horizontal scaling. However you want, you can scale up, scale down anytime. Increase storage capacity, like if you're looking to keep some data, right? So there is no limitation, you can go whatever capacity you want. Data safety, right? So now my data is moving from my premises to the cloud over the internet, right? So the data in transit will be encrypted, and whatever data which is residing on their physical infrastructure will also be encrypted, and whatever your data will be accessible or will be accessed only by you. Okay, even this infrastructure is shared. My organization data resides here, your organization data resides, but nowhere it will talk to each other. Like there's some sort of safety there. Okay, so these are the top benefits what we see where people are adapting or moving towards the cloud services. Any questions? So now, uh, again, it depends upon what type of services you go. So next we'll be discussing on that. Okay, you go as a IaaS, you go as a platform as a service. So let's take example. So when we say maintenance, sometime where the OS updates are required, or sometime the application updates are required, right? So wherein you have to do it manually. Even in cloud also you do it. That depends upon what type of service you go on. So let's take example if you go as a IaaS, so wherein you will be managing the operating system, but underlying operating system like your hypervisor or the hardware firmware, that you need not to worry, that is taken care. But when you go as a platform as a service or software as a service, you need not to worry about the OS update as well. And when you go as a software as a service, you need not to worry about the application updates. So like if you take Office 365 as an example, right? So when you see the traditional way, we host our email system in our premises, right? So your hardware, your firmware, your hypervisor, and your operating system and your Exchange updates. But when you see the Office 365, there is nothing much to do anything on that, right? We create the user mailbox, we start managing it. Okay. So this is how it varies. That's what I mean here. Yeah. Any questions on this?
Quick question. What's the vertical and horizontal scaling?
Sure, definitely. So let's take example. Now I'm hosting my application on a virtual machine. So this VM is running with 8 GB RAM and 2 core CPU, okay, and some amount of hard disk. So when I say vertical scaling, scale up means increasing your existing capacity of the same instance. From 8 GB, I can go with 16 GB or 32 GB, whatever, and 4 CPU or whatever. Or whenever I don't require, I can come down back to 8 GB, 2 CPU. This we call as a vertical scale. So let's take example, you want to have additional instance. So you can go horizontal scaling, like add up the instance to the same application. One more VM with 8 GB, 2 CPU. So this we call as a horizontal scaling. So whenever you need to increase your capacity, however you want, you can do it. Any other questions, any other doubts? All right, let's move to the next slide. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. So yeah, I'll also check the chat. If something is there, you can put it on the chat as well. All right, I'll move to the next slide. Yeah. So this is what I was just discussing, the overhead, right? So when you host in your premises and when you host in cloud, how your maintenance or handling capacity will be, right? So a lot of overhead when you run in your premises, and in cloud, it's pretty straightforward. Whatever the services you are going to use, you'll be paying subscription fee for. Simple. All right. Like let's take example in on-prem, same thing I said, like your implementation and your hardware. To manage this hardware, you require IT person. You'll come across a lot of maintenance. And again, to manage this hardware and your infrastructure, you need to train your IT persons. Right? And also you'll have your software costs like your OS or your application. So when it comes to the cloud, it's subscription model. So whatever you use for whatever the duration, you'll be charged accordingly. Okay. All right. I'll move to the next slide. Okay. So now, what are the types of cloud computing here? Most commonly, you have been heard private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, community cloud. So these are the types of cloud compute. Okay. Let's try to understand one by one. The first thing is a private cloud. The name itself says it's a private, means the infrastructure belongs to you and you will be building the infrastructure and you will be hosting your services over there and you will be managing it, and this will not be shared with someone. Means your on-premises data center we call as a private cloud, right? Means you have your own IT or your data center, where you are managing from end to end, and this is not shared with someone, right? Your data center, I cannot build my infrastructure in your premises. That we call as a private cloud. In simple terms, your on-prem infrastructure is referring here as a private cloud. Okay. And next thing is a public cloud. So what is public cloud here? The name itself says public, right? Means there is an infrastructure is built and which is available for public. Anyone can build their services in their infrastructure and they can host their applications or whatever they want, like Amazon, AWS, Azure, Google, right? So all these are public clouds. Once this is available for every individual, anyone can create their account and they can start consuming the service. So that doesn't mean that whatever I host, right? So that you can access it. You can't, right? So whatever I build, it's private to me. Whatever you build, it's private to you. Okay. So that we call as a public cloud. And next thing we call as a hybrid cloud. So hybrid cloud is nothing but when you have your on-premises infrastructure, your private cloud. Okay. And also now you want to extend your services in the public cloud like Azure, AWS, Google, whatever. Okay. So when you're connecting this two, and this two is working as a one single IT infrastructure for you, we call it as a hybrid cloud. Okay. In simple way, like I have my on-premises infrastructure. Now I want to consume or I want to move my infrastructure to cloud like Office 365 services from on-prem or whatever, right? So when you're using the Office 365 services or you're extending your business to the cloud, right? Now you're going to connect this to each other as a one single IT infrastructure. So that we call as a hybrid cloud. Like when you have your data center across the globe, US, India, Australia. Now all these are connected and work as a one single IT infrastructure for you, right? Same way, when you can connect your on-prem infrastructure to cloud, the connection or how it works, like the integration between your on-prem and cloud, it's called as a hybrid cloud. Yeah. Any questions on this?
Can you explain the hybrid cloud again, please?
Okay. I'll take one simple real-time example.
Okay.
Okay. So now in your organization, you have your office laptop, you use your user ID and password, right? With the same user ID and password, you'll be accessing your email, chat, and you can log into any other computer in your organization. So how that has been built? That has been built with a service called Active Directory, right? So wherein all your users or identity and access management is managed over your Active Directory. So nowadays, all your emails, chats, the Teams, whatever you use, right? So this is a cloud service or the Office 365 service, whatever is consumed in your organization is a cloud, right? So that is hosted in your Microsoft cloud. Okay, let's take that example, Office 365 you're using. So now you will use the same user ID and password what you use in your computer to log in, and same credential you will use to access your mailbox running in the Office 365, right? So now how this Office 365 knows your credentials? Okay. So there's something called as a Azure Active Directory. We will be covering this practically as well. So this Azure AD, wherein you are connecting your on-prem Active Directory to your Azure AD, in the sense you are synchronizing your object from on-prem to cloud, right? And you are using the same credentials to access your mailbox hosted in the cloud as well. So how this guy knows your credentials? Because your on-prem Active Directory is connected to the Azure AD and your Azure AD is connected to your Office 365 and you're accessing it. So in this scenario, you are connecting your on-prem with your cloud, and this is one of the simple example for your hybrid. Okay. Same way, now I am hosting my application in my on-premises So now I want to extend my IT infrastructure in cloud in Azure for whatever the reason. So I build application 2 in the cloud, okay, wherein you want this application 2 to be have a connection with your application 1 or with whatever the on-prem infrastructure you have. So what you're going to do, you're going to connect a connection between your on-prem and the Azure, either using the site-to-site VPN or Express or whatever, right? Like how do you connect your two different data center over the internet using VPN or MPLS? Same way you can build a connection. So now I have some IT footprint in my on-prem, some in cloud, which are connected together and working as a one single infrastructure that we call as a hybrid cloud. Any questions?
So we would be doing this practical too, right?
Yep, we'll be doing it.
Okay.
See, uh, we will do all the scenarios. Okay. So this Azure AD integration now, this we will be doing it as one of the example. But again, I'll be building the Active Directory in the cloud itself. But still, I'll show you how the connections are built from your on-prem to cloud. Okay. And also we'll be doing the point to site VPN from your individual machine. How do you connect to your Azure? Right. So that is also an example of hybrid we do it. Okay. So maximum, whatever we are discussing, we'll be covering in our practicals. If at all, if you have more infrastructure from your end, definitely I can showcase that as well. Okay. All right. Any questions? Any doubts on the hybrid cloud? Are we good?
Yes.
All right. So next thing is the community cloud. So need not to worry very much on this. So community cloud is nothing but like where you guys like a couple of different people are connecting and working on a one single infrastructure to research and development. Simple that. Okay. Need not to worry. Wherein this is not in a real time. What do you see? And something we called as a multi-cloud. Okay. This is the most common what you see, the hybrid cloud. And some cases wherein I don't want to manage anything in my premises. I host everything in cloud where I'll be using completely public. Or I'll be having my infrastructure running in multiple cloud. Like I have some IT infrastructure running in my on-prem, and I have some services running in Microsoft cloud. I have my some services running in AWS. I have some services running in Google Cloud. This infrastructure I've seen with multiple clients for whatever the reason. So now I have a hybrid connection from my on-prem to Microsoft Azure. I have a hybrid connection from AWS to on-prem, Google to on-prem. And directly or indirectly, Microsoft can talk to AWS Cloud. AWS Cloud can talk to Google. Google can directly or indirectly can talk to Microsoft. It depends upon, right, how your architecture are built. But still, some infrastructure running in Azure can talk to AWS as well as Google and on-prem, vice versa. So hosting your services more than two clouds, including your on-prem, right? We call that as a multi-cloud environment. You can see this type of infrastructure also in your real time. Okay. Yeah. Any questions on this?
Uh, how do you said it's gonna be Azure, AWS, and Google. So how do they talk to each other? What are the ways?
You can build. So let's take example. You have your infrastructure in Microsoft Azure as well as AWS. So how you are building your connection from cloud to on-prem, same way you can build your VPN connection between them, right? So let's take example. Yours is company A, mine is company B, right? So wherein you are my vendor or supplier, whatever. So now you want to access some resource in my organization, or I want to access some resource in your organization. What we are going to do? We are going to build a VPN, right, between your network to my network, and all my traffic will be securely accessed or travel, like can go and fro, right, between these two different organizations over the internet using the VPN, right? We do that, right? Same way you can build your VPN tunnel between the clouds as well. See, in the sense, you can have your direct connection from Microsoft to Azure or whatever. Or even this Microsoft can talk via on-prem. It depends upon how you're routing your traffic or how you're building your links. Okay. But this is achievable. And you can see this in your infrastructure as well. If your company is hosted with multiple cloud. Yeah. Any questions? Any doubts? All right. I'll move to the next slide. Okay. So far we understood what are the types of uh, cloud computing. So, so we're running out of time, right? So we have 15 minutes. That's okay. Okay, I'll try to cover this today. Okay, so hope I'm not rushing up. All right, so if I'm going fast, you can ask me. I can slow down. Okay, okay. Can we cover this slide today?
If you could be a little bit slow, that would be great.
Okay, no worries. That's fine. I
Yeah,
do
because, yeah, thank you.
that. All right. So now today I'll just give the overview of this. So this I'll be covering tomorrow. Then we can go with the question and answers. Okay. So in cloud, we can see there are different types of services. Okay. You might have been heard IaaS, infrastructure as a service, PaaS, PaaS, platform as a service, SaaS, software as a service. Or even you can see code as a service, so on, so right. So nowadays everything as a service. Okay. What is the major difference here? Or how it is defined between different types of cloud services? It's very simple. So here there is a customer and there is a vendor. Who is the customer? We are the customer. We are going to consume the cloud services. Who is the vendor? Azure, AWS, Google. These guys are the cloud service provider. We call them as a vendor. So now the types of cloud computing is differentiated, like what is the scope of customer management or administration? What is the vendor scope of management and administration? Only this will divide in the types of cloud services. Simple that. Okay. So I'll be explaining in detail in tomorrow with some relevant example. Okay. I'll just give you the overview now. So in infrastructure as a service, you can see there is something which is marked in yellow that is managed by the vendor. So if you take Azure, Microsoft is going to manage till here. From here, whichever is marked in green, that is taken care by the customer. Means we are going to manage. Same thing when you go to the platform as a service, right? The management of the vendor has been increased. Your overhead has been reduced. Yeah, vendor or Azure. If you go with AWS, it's AWS. So till this slide, whatever we are discussing, it is common across any cloud. Okay. You go with Azure, AWS, Google, this architecture is the same. Okay. So yellow, whatever you see is managed by the vendor, or here in this scenario, it's managed by Microsoft Azure. And whatever is green is managed by us. The infrastructure as a service, Toyota, right? So now I want to host my applications. So what I will do, I choose Microsoft Azure, right?
Yes.
So now I am the customer for Microsoft, and Microsoft is a vendor for me who is providing their infrastructure to host my application. Yeah. So now let's take example. I'm a Toyota company owner or the manager, IT manager, whatever.
Yes.
So now I will have my Azure admin who is a Toyota employee. Okay. So now this Azure admin will be managing the green one. Okay. Let's take example if this Toyota or I have been outsourced my IT infrastructure management to some other IT vendor. like Wipro, TCS, whatever. So now their employees are managing my Azure infrastructure, right? So still they are Azure admin. They will be managing only the green stuff. Got it, no? Means my IT vendor or Toyota will not touch the Microsoft physical data center or the hardware virtualization or whatever. Means whatever is marked in the LO1 is taken care by the Microsoft only. As a Azure admin or as a customer, you'll be managing only on the green one. I'll give you one example tomorrow class. So it will take at least 15 minutes. So I'll be covering this slide again. Don't worry. Okay. In simple terms, what Microsoft is going to take care, what Azure admin or a customer is going to take, right? So LO1 is completely taken care by the Microsoft, and the green one will be taken care by the Azure admin or from the customer. Clear on this? Okay. So this is what will define here, right? So when you go with a software as a service, you need not to worry till here. It's taken care by the Microsoft, the Office 365. You build your mailbox, you manage your mail flow, whatever. You need not to worry anything beyond that. I'll give you the examples there. Okay. So here, only thing you need to understand the types of cloud services. Whenever you see IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, what is the difference? The difference is the scope of management between the vendor and the customer. Simple that. So now you guys are learning Azure, right? So you'll be touching only on the green part, whatever it is. Okay. Yellow part is taken care by the Microsoft. Any questions, any doubts so far? Okay, don't worry. Like, if this is the first time you're going through this words, so it will be very new. That's okay. If you have any questions, any doubt, or you need more example, feel free on this part. Okay. So we are touching from the foundation and we'll be learning good amount of knowledge in terms of managing your infrastructure in the Microsoft Azure. Okay. So today we just hold on here. If you have any doubt, any question, please let me know. We can discuss on that.
So, what's the difference between Azure and AWS?
Okay. All right. That's a good question. So that's why I was telling, like till here, whatever we discuss, this is common across any cloud. Azure, AWS, Google, IBM, whatever the cloud service provider, right? So whatever the content we have discussed is a common across any cloud. So now when you ask between different cloud service provider, okay. So now whatever I can host in Azure, I can host in AWS as well as in Google. No difference. You want a virtual machine, Windows, Linux, you can host it. You want to host any software as a service like a SQL database or a web application, you get it. You can host it. Okay. The difference would be these are two different, like both are different service provider. The costing and some of the features or the options may vary, but still the core components are same. No difference. Okay. If I host a Windows machine in, if I host a VM in Azure and same VM in AWS, no difference. It runs in the same way. Maybe the backend hardware like Microsoft runs on the Hyper-V and AWS may run on a different hypervisor. Anyways, that will not make any difference for me now. I want a VM, the VM is running. And Azure, AWS, have their own SLA, they will provide the uptime accordingly. No difference. But here and there, some features, the costing may vary. Yeah. Any other questions, any other doubts? And some services may not be available in the other vendors also. Like when you take this chat service or like Teams or your mail or your SharePoint or your OneDrive, right? So this is the Microsoft Cloud feature. I don't think so. This is available in AWS, but this is available in Google now. Google Drive, Google Mail, Hangout. So even Google is available for enterprise. Okay. So like if you take example of your Outlook, like uh, your Outlook or Teams with your Gmail and with a Hangout, right? You see a lot of differences. So this type of features difference may you see that, but still you can do a video call, audio call in Hangout as well, and even you can share your screen as well. See, Azure Administration, you can manage your AWS also. Only thing, the graphical user interface and some of the features and some of the options may vary. Some kind of architecture may vary, right? The core components are same in any cloud. Okay, you are good with Azure with the same like mindset, even you can manage your AWS as well. Okay, all right. Any other questions?
Would you be providing us this slides to refer? Can we have it or no?
Yeah, I'll provide. Don't worry about. See, don't worry about the material. So whatever this content you see here, I share this link. You can go through it.
Okay. And how long is the Azure administration courses for?
Okay. So minimum is 30 hours.
Okay.
So Monday to Friday, we can cover it. Yeah, my name is Ravi.
Uh, No, if you could tell us your background, that would be like most of our like, they don't know.
Definitely. No worries. I usually start with my introduction. So like a couple of demo which has been run. Okay, no worries. Yeah. So about me, I have 13 plus years of experience in IT industry, and I take care of consulting, implementing of Microsoft and VMware product. Nowadays, less on VMware, take care on Microsoft more. So in cloud services, I take care of Azure Administration, Azure Active Directory Administration, and migration to the Azure Active Directory, and also more on the Azure Active Directory I take care nowadays. And also I worked on Office 365 implementation and migrating to Office 365 from on-prem Exchange or also from Google to Office 365. And also I worked on VMware virtualization and Hyper-V virtualization. And also I take it on Windows Server administration, like any roles running on top of it, like Active Directory, DNS, yeah, anything on the Windows part. So this is my brief overview.
Thank you. I have one more question. So after doing this Azure administration, what exam can we give to get the certification? That if the certificate would be helpful to get a
Yeah,
job.
that's right. That's right. So we are focusing to cover AZ104 content. So we will be covering more than whatever has been listed here. Okay. So these are the components where we'll be covering. And AZ104 is the course what we are learning. Okay, I'll just quickly cover one slide. Okay, so we get an idea there. Okay, the main thing what you're asking is the learning path, right? So
Yes.
earlier this Azure Admin, the course paper was called AZ103, like 2 years back, and they have been updated. Now the paper code is AZ104. That is the exam what you're going to take it up as well after this course, right? And that is what wherein we are learning in this entire session. And this is 30 hours, minimum 30 hours, and it is more than 30 hours, like it depends upon lab scenarios. When you actually look the learning path or the career path, right? So there are two major different paths. So one is administration and other one is a development, right? So administration, as I told you, right? So building your IT infrastructure and managing it. Development is nothing but developing solution, and whatever the solution you're going to develop, you'll be hosting on your infrastructure on top of the administration what we host. Okay. So when you ask like what is the learning path, so the first learning content will be the AZ900, which is Azure Fundamentals, and this is an optional certification. Means it's not a mandatory certification to start AZ104 or to get AZ104. It's not. So this fundamentals need not to worry. This whatever we are discussed in today which covers everything. And again, most of the things in fundamentals are covered up in our training itself. Okay. So now we are learning AZ 104. So this is your certification. After completing this course, you can take it up. So this is for the one who are looking on an administration level. If at all, if you're looking on a developing level, like development phase or like development platform, right? Or like you're interested in coding and you want to do a development, then your course content should be AZ204. AZ204 is completely on developing solution in Microsoft Cloud. Okay. Hope everyone are looking for administration here.
Yes.
Yeah. And next, after administration, what next? Or let's take example, you're interested in DevOps, Azure DevOps. So AZ400 is the course content to learn and get certified as a Azure DevOps engineer expert. So for this, there is a prerequisite. You should know AZ104 plus AZ400, where you can achieve this Azure DevOps engineer expert, or AZ204 plus AZ400, where even you can achieve the DevOps. Means there are two different paths where you can learn DevOps. After 104 also, you can learn additional course AZ400, which covers the DevOps, and 104 is a prerequisite, or 204 is a prerequisite. Any questions on the DevOps certification or learning path?
So after doing 104, can we, if, for example, if I want to be a DevOps developer, Azure developer, can I do it or?
Yes, you can do it. See, if you are looking on a development also later part, or like,
Mhm.
or like, let's take example, you want to become Azure developer, right? 204. So if you ask like, is it okay, I can learn 104, or is it required? Right. So AZ104 will give you the complete background, like how their backend infrastructures are built and connected. And on top of that, like if you are looking on a development and if you know the infrastructure, that is well and right. So into like every day we see the developer will come us and they'll be asking their requirement. But again, they don't know what is the underlying infrastructure which is running. And if they know that, that will help them to build their infrastructure more robust, right? So that's good. Like if you know the 104 is also very good, even you can start 204 as well. It doesn't mean that don't learn this or that. So you can learn whatever you want. But when you have some target, you have to go with step by step. So if you have a target as a DevOps, so this is the step. Or if you're looking on a development only, this is the direct step. Or you can learn 104 plus AZ204 plus AZ400. That also can do it. No harm. Or see, again, no, there are still more different contents are there. If you're looking on Azure Cloud Security, AZ500, you can directly learn AZ500. There is no prerequisite. But still, when you go as a security and you don't know like how Azure VNets are connected or Azure Active Directory, anyways, that will be covered. But if you don't know what is the backend, how the infrastructure is built and managed, right? So if you learn 104 plus AZ500, that is also good. Like if your core thing is AZ500 on Azure security, if you learn 104, will give you more idea like how things are connected on the backend, where you can delete very easily in future. But 104 is your baseline, where you'll be understanding from end to end, building your compute, network, storage, and all the like infrastructure related services. Okay. If at all, if you're looking Azure Architect, right? So this was the earlier part. So AZ400 plus AZ305. With this, you can achieve Azure Architect Expert certification. Okay. So these are the learning. Any questions, any doubts? Okay. And again, if you ask what are the prerequisites, right? So this is one of the core thing. So as a cloud admin, you should have some prerequisites. If at all, if you don't have this prerequisite, I'll share some links. You can refer it. And if at all, if you need any information, any help, you can let me know. All right. So you should be knowing about the operating system administration like Windows and Linux admin. And here we are not administering anything on the OS level. All right. So the OS level has to be taken care by the respective admin like Windows or Linux admin. So our job is to build a VM. Done. But still, for some sort of troubleshooting or something, no, wherein you should have some OS management skill as well. So it's good that you know something about Windows and Linux administration on a basic level. That's good. If at all, if you're interested to learn more, yes, you're good to do that. Okay. And you should know what is virtualization, because the entire cloud, whatever we build and manage, which is a virtualized platform, not on the core level on virtualization, and overview about the virtualization, how things are on a backend. What is virtual machine, virtual disk, virtual network, how things are connected to the virtual to the physical, some idea. This will be covered, don't worry. And something about the storage, like what is SAN, NAS, DAS, some basics about the storage part will help. Networking, yes, very much. So you should know the basic networking. What is IP address? What is subnetting? What are the classes of IP? What are the network devices like switch, router, VPN, what it does, firewall, what it does, some basics of it. Okay. And also some protocols like what is TCP IP, what is DNS, what it does, what is VPN, how it will be in the infrastructure, what is firewall, what is the use of it, why the encryption is required, what is encryption is about, what is active directory, and what is site resiliency or what is the disaster recovery, why it is required, how that will impact or like how that is useful in your infrastructure, what is backup, what is restore, what to take backup, how to take backup, where to keep backup, some basics about the backup like response time, resolution time. So, okay, so these are the prerequisites wherein you should be knowing. I'll share some link. You can refer that as well. That will give you some more idea on that. And still, if you need anything, I can share some link. You can. Any questions? See, AZ104 is a right course content. Like if you're starting it as a um, fresher, or you're studying as a from IT background, like your Linux, Windows, network, or SAP or Oracle admin. Now you want to switch your career as a Azure admin. AZ104 is a right content. Or you're from non-technical, you want to switch now. AZ104 is a. See, Microsoft. Let's take example. No, like I have some issues with my infrastructure in Azure. I will log a case. That is where the Microsoft vendor will come in picture. See, anything on LO1 has to be taken care by the cloud. You can log a case. Obviously, they will support. This is what we are talking about, the 99.95% of uptime. Okay, but still, you build a VM, Windows machine. So now, anything on the OS issue, when you build it as IaaS, that is your scope. So in this VM, you are hosting some web server application. If you have some issue, you cannot go with Microsoft for that. You're getting it right.
Yes.
So anything here, that is your scope. But still, if something which Microsoft can offer you, then that will be the additional charges. Let's take example. You run a Windows operating system on Microsoft Azure as infrastructure as a service. So now you have some issues with Microsoft, sorry, in the operating system. So now you will also log a case, not with the Azure. You will log a case with Microsoft for your OS support. You're getting it right?
Log a case with Microsoft for the OS.
Yeah. Like how, like in your premises, you have a VM running a Windows operating system. You have some issues with your operating system. You log a case with Microsoft to support your OS. Correct now?
Yeah.
So this is on your infrastructure as a service, compute, network, storage. Yes, that's all. See, let's take example. You want to host an SAP application.
Yes.
So now this application team will give a request to you since you're a administrator. They give a requirement saying that I want some two Linux box with so and so configuration. I want one
Okay.
Windows box, so and so configuration.
In order
So
for
you
me to
build that.
install SAP. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
you build a VM and install the default application like the firewall and whatever is required, right? Then you will hand over to the application team.
And over.
Yeah, they will
I
take it from
understand.
there. But again, here what will happen now? Let's take example. You have a Windows and Linux infrastructure, and again, you are a Azure admin. So your job is to build your infrastructure. Let's take example. There is some OS level issues. So for which obviously there will be a separate Windows administration team. They will take care if it's a Windows box, and if it's a Linux machine, the Linux guy is going to take. But still, sometime as a Azure admin, some organization will ask you to have a Windows and Linux knowledge. It depends on. But again, the
You can
core,
troubleshoot with them.
yes, yes. So that's why I told you, there is some prerequisite where you should be
Sure.
knowing on the OS management as well.
I understand.
But still, as a cloud admin, what will be your day-to-day job? So we manage the services in cloud, like creating the storage service, network service, compute like a virtual machine, right? So this is what wherein we will creating and managing, and we will monitor that. We will troubleshoot only that. Anything beyond that, like OS or any application sitting on top of it, so that will be taken care by the respective guys. But anything on the LO1, you will be escalating to the Microsoft. Like the VM is not at all accessible, right? So in that case, obviously you don't have the virtualization like your VM, like whatever the backend infrastructure. So you log a case with Microsoft, so they will look into it. Don't worry, I'll go to this slide once again, where I'll be giving one example and I'll be showcasing, like I'll be comparing that how you can host in cloud, how it depends upon. Then you'll get better idea here. All right. Any other questions? Okay. All right then. So today we just hold on here. If at all, if you have not shared your contact details, like your phone or email ID, please share with the coordinator. And I'll share this material link. You can refer it there. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
How do we share our details? Just
Yeah, our coordinator will share with you. Okay, I'll
perfect.
share the link of the OneDrive. So she will send to you, and from there you can access the content. Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right then. Thank you guys. Thanks for your time. We'll connect
Thank you.
tomorrow. Then, bye-bye.
Yes.